it in my feet, and it feels so good inside. When I hear that music, it gets me on my feet, makes me wanna dance all night. Don't make me remember everything you did, 'cause I don't wanna hurt inside. Feel it in my body, feel it in my feet, and it feels so good inside. And I always wanna feel like this. I close my eyes and all my troubles fade away. I was once got so deep into me, but tonight I won't let that out. Gonna make myself forget about you, baby. Gonna make my head forget your name. Tonight I'm gonna dance the pain away, forget your name. Oh yeah. Feel it in my body, feel it in my feet, and it feels so good inside. Don't need anybody, I just need the beat. I just wanna dance all night. I don't want to remember everything you did. I'm done with the hurt inside. Feel it in my body, feel it in my feet, and it feels so good inside. And I always wanna feel like this. I close my eyes and all my troubles fade away. I was once got so deep into me, but tonight I won't let.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Legally Blissed Conversations Conference Room, which is a regular roundtable where women lawyers get together to discuss subject matters that we think will really help our audiences better navigate life and law. And today we're talking about how we integrate creativity into our lives to make us better lawyers, better businesswomen, and just most important, better humans. My name is Suzi Hixon, and I'm a trademark attorney and the founder of the Legally Blissed Community. After having practiced law for about 20 years in both big law and now having my own law firm, I've worked with a lot of lawyers, and I have many women lawyer friends. I've learned that while women lawyers are incredible advocates for others, they seem to not always be great self-advocates. Hence, Legally Blissed was developed to give female lawyers a platform to network and collaborate and support each other, all while learning and integrating the BLISS Method to become more fierce and powerful advocates, not just for themselves, but also for each other. BLISS is actually an acronym for boundary setting, leveraging legal tech and AI, integrating creativity, self-confidence, and seeking support and community, which is exactly what Legally Blissed does. Today, I'm super excited to discuss with these fellow brilliant and badass community members about how they integrate creativity in their lives. So let's welcome them today. We have Claire Parsons, Christine Vartanian, Megan Smiley, and Erin Gerner. So let's kind of go the opposite of alphabetical order. Let's start with Christine Vartanian. If you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me here today, Suzi. I am so incredibly honored to be part of this community and to be featured on your show today. I am an attorney, but I am an attorney who hasn't practiced for 25 years, although I stay active. And I was an engineer, then an attorney, and then I now am an image consultant. My company is Jade House of Style, and Jade House of Style is a full service image and brand styling company. So with Jade, in this house, we do so many things to up-level the image of an entrepreneur, from the wardrobe to the way they show up on camera, to the sets that they sit in when they're on camera, to really logo design and really branding in general. So it is a very creative industry. And I am just, I can't wait to dig deep into the creative realm. And I also have a podcast called Waist Up Wardrobe. So, you know, there's a lot of little details in there too that we can explore.
Thank you so much for being here, Christine. So let's see. Okay, opposite alphabetical order. Megan, you're next. I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yep. If alphabet memory serves.
Yes.
I'm Megan Smiley. I'm currently a life and business coach, but I was a corporate lawyer for a number of years. I then worked in a law school as the director of international programs for almost a decade, at which point my sort of creative bug started to really take over. And I felt this overwhelming, I wasn't quite sure what it was, but it was literally to create something. So I started a travel blog. I started a podcast, which is still available, the Lawyer's Escape Pod, talking to people who've left the practice. I then started an interior design business, which I ran, and have then since pivoted into helping other lawyers, particularly what I call my closet creatives, lean into that and design heart-centered creative businesses as a transition out of law.
Wow, this is like perfect subject matter for you to speak about. So thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to kind of tap into your genius. Let's see, Claire, another one of my like amazingly creative friends.
Yeah, like accidentally, totally accidentally and unplanned. So hi, I'm Claire Parsons. I am an attorney. I still practice. My office, I'm in downtown Cincinnati right now. I practice in Kentucky and Ohio doing employment and labor, litigation, and local government law. And I've done that for most of my practice. And I actually changed firms last year. And in the process of doing that, I wrote my first book called How to Be a Badass Lawyer. I am also the founder of the Brilliant Legal Mind blog that I started in 2020. And we're approaching, I think, 120 posts or something like that now. And I'm a mindfulness and compassion teacher. And I have right beside me as well my first children's book. This is a proof copy of Mommy Needs a Minute, which is a children's book that happened because I wrote a silly poem last year, and I happen to have a friend who draws pictures and another friend who helps people turn books, actually get books published. So I'm fortunate that that's going to be coming out in a few weeks. So I love creativity. It's changed my life, and I highly encourage anyone to jump in and get started with it.
Yeah. Will you just briefly tell us what Mommy Needs a Minute is about?
It is about a mommy needing a minute, and really it's about so I have, when I talk about mindfulness, the first thing people say is that they never have time and things like that, or they can't get their kids to be quiet. So this book is about a mom who's asking her kids to give her a minute because she's had a long day at work and she just wants to take some time to rest and meditate, and the little kids don't want to let that happen. So she sort of negotiates with them to give her some time. And then we do one thing in the book that I added, if I can find a page, is the battery getting recharged at the bottom of the page to show kids that, like, right here, the battery. Yeah, or the battery right here.
This is where I am. Like, and that might be relatable to children of this era, right?
Oh, they definitely know it.
This
is
amazing.
That's the idea. Yeah. And my dachshund's in it too, my mini dachshund. So that's awesome. Yeah.
You know, I don't have children, but I do have a very wild miniature Australian Shepherd. And when I come home from work, like, she just gets very excited to see me. And sometimes I'm just like thinking, like, you know, I need to decompress a little bit here before I'm ready for her. So maybe your next book can be something like for dogs. So
yeah.
But thank you so much, Claire, for being here. I'm so excited to dig into your very creative brain today. So, and Erin, let's hear about you. I know you've got some amazing things going on. One of my creative geniuses.
Oh my gosh! Well, I'll receive that today. I like it.
You don't realize it. Like you don't appreciate your own creativity. I don't think as much as the world can perceive it and appreciate it. So
that is true, especially since y'all witnessed how clunky it was for me to get on here. So in true creativity. But anyway, Suzi, thank you so much for having me. Ladies, I'm so excited to do this with you guys. I just love this community. I love Legally Bliss. I love what you are doing. Community is a huge part of my platform and my mission. I'm Erin Gerner. I live right outside of Dallas, Texas. I'm also a mom. I practiced law for about 7 years and left to stay home with my kiddos for, I've probably been out of the practice of law as long as I was in it at this point. But along that journey, it was very much a journey of self-discovery. Who was I outside of being a lawyer? What did I want my life to look like? Really just taking stock of, you get to a certain point and like, okay, well, I don't want to stop working. What's next? How do I want this to look? How do I want this to feel? And that was really unraveling a lot of these legal narratives and just, stories that I had been telling myself over time. And through that, I met a coach, then really just decided to coach myself. I'd been doing it my entire life. I just hadn't really even realized it. And I didn't even know this was a thing, which is why I'm so passionate about just speaking to attorneys, leaning into attorneys and just letting them know that there's a different, better way, one that I wish I had had. So anyway, yeah, I'm a life coach and I help women align their career with their values and their priorities. I'm also a huge advocate for community just among women in the law, something that, again, I did not have. My only mentor in the law was a male. He was fantastic. But there was just no camaraderie with women and community and connection. And I truly believe, in my personal experience in building my own business and brand, has been when you lean into your network, when you lean into your community and you form true relationships, not only does that help you scale your business faster because you're putting yourself in rooms with people who are showing you what's possible, telling you how they got there faster, but it's enriching the hell out of your life, like changing your life to be leveling up with women who want the same things as you, and then to just build a foundational community just to help everyone win. So I'm actually hosting my first retreat here in about T-3 weeks. I'm so excited. Yay! That's part of it, Suzi. I've got some serious swag for you that I'm so excited to share. And yes, I'm just tickled to death. I just created this. It didn't even exist until it just was dropped in my lap. I've wanted a retreat, and I just had this vision of like, gosh, what if this existed? And then it didn't. And so I created it, and here we are. So I don't know if that's creative or just taking messy action or a combination of both, but I'm so excited to be here and with these fellow women and just hear about you guys and all the things. So thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. So the thing that, like, the common theme that I'm seeing here with all four of you is that you all created a thing out of nothing, right? And I think that that's kind of the beauty of being an entrepreneur. And Claire, even though like you're still in practice, you still have a blog, right? Like Brilliant Legal Mind and your books. Is that a separate business that you're running?
Yeah, so that's separate from my firm. And people ask me how I make time for it all the time. And the reality is that I find that the extra energy I get from being able to use a different part of my brain and personality kind of helps me go back in and, negotiate a labor contract or go to court and litigate a case. But I've also experienced that it's actually helped my law practice. My former firm never got in the way or tried to get me to stop, but they just didn't really care about any of the things that I did. My current firm is much more receptive. And actually, when I changed firms, I told them that I needed some time, a few weeks to kind of recover from the switch, but that I also was planning to write a book. And I thought it would be a great time to do it during that time because it would just make me focus on something else. And they did not laugh at me. They were really supportive and they've been really helpful. So, and I have found that all of those things kind of give me relationships with people and opportunities that I wouldn't otherwise get. And that supports my law practice. So it's not been the case that it's really been a competition. Sometimes it is for my calendar, but I figure that out. And obviously my law practice takes precedent. But like it really hasn't been a thing where they've been competing. They've actually been much more symbiotic and, a good relationship on both accounts.
So you said that your creativity, like getting to kind of exercise the right side of your brain, helps you be a better lawyer. So can you talk a little bit about that, Claire?
Well, I think from one standpoint, my training in mindfulness and understanding of compassion has made me just a much more confident advocate because I have started to learn and really understand that when I am afraid or feel anger or feel any of those really emotions that sometimes we lawyers can judge and want to run away from, I've learned how to really navigate those very skillfully. And so that has helped me just be much more confident in dealing with anything in my litigation practice, or in dealing with any kind of marketing efforts, or if I have to go interview or pitch for a new client or something like that. It's made me a more effective networker. But being able to write and get ideas out of my brain is just a good thing for me, because I tend to be an overthinker. But also being able to share parts of myself and stories from my life where I can show who I am, that's been really good too. And sometimes when you're a lawyer, you can get too much in the mode of showing up and being super professional, and you cannot let people know who you are. And if they don't know who you are, they don't trust you. And if they don't trust you, they're not going to call you to be their lawyer. So there's so many ways that it's been beneficial that it's almost hard for me to count.
I love that. So when's the next book? No pressure.
Well, yeah. Well, actually, I might have a professional book coming on the way, but I'm still working out the details on that. But I actually might have a law book coming. I may have one on confidence / self-compassion, because I have 15,000 words from my old book my first book that I didn't actually use. So more books are going to be coming from me. That's for sure.
I love it. And that's something that we're going to be talking about a lot next month in the community, is self-confidence. So let's go to Erin. I think it's so beautiful how you create, like, you had this vision of creating a thing, right? It was very similar to how Claire was with her book. Like, she kind of put it out there in the world on one of my very first podcasts. And, now she's got 2 books out there. So I think it's really cool how, we kind of speak things into the world that don't exist, and then we create it. So I would love to hear a little bit about kind of what prompted you to create the retreat that you have coming up.
So I have always I just love people. I love community, and I think actually, and I will back up. So a little bit about my background that I didn't share when I was introducing myself. So in between law and starting my coaching business, I was actually in a social selling company. And what that taught me was that I was 100% sure that I did not want to practice law anymore. And B, that I thoroughly enjoyed building teams, empowering women, getting them together in the same room so they can share all of their knowledge to then help everybody get to the same place faster. That has just always been something that I have loved, because I think I've always realized that, yes, I would love to know it all, but I don't know it all. But what I do know is enough people who know enough things that can get a mission accomplished, right? Like, I think there's real power in leaning into, like, I don't have to do it all. And that's been something I've really had to unwind as an attorney, because I think we are fixers. We do know how to do a lot, but we don't know how to do everything, right? And it's hard to admit, like, hey, like, I may need to, like, wave the white flag. But when you empower yourself to just lean into your community and you gather all these women together, it is like serious magic happens. I mean, you can't even explain it. And I've been to enough masterminds and enough gatherings and retreats with women over not only that, but since then, to just know that magic happens there. It's like I can't explain it, but once you are in the room with women like that and your mind is expanded to what is possible, and then you bond with them in a way that, again, like, they just see you, anything is possible for your life. And that didn't exist in the law, or at least I couldn't find it. And it certainly didn't exist when I was practicing over a decade ago. And I honestly had a dream about this retreat. I had a dream. And then the next day, my husband had a dream. I'm not even kidding. Like, I am not this type of, like, woo-woo crazy person. But, like, my husband was like, that's crazy that you said that. I had a dream that we bought a piece of property and you were having retreats for women in the law. I was like, what? So anyway, that's how this retreat was born. Literally just
in a dream. So, I talked a lot. I did I guess it was last week, I did a live on how just ways that we can, integrate creativity and kind of, exercise the right side of our brains. And one of the tips was, like, walking in nature and taking a different route, things like that. But it did not include dream work, like leaning into what your dreams are. But I think that could be, I think we need to stay in tune with those, right? Like, don't necessarily write off what our dreams are saying. Like, there could be insights there. So
yeah, exactly. It's just kind of evidence trickled along the way that maybe you just kind of like perk up your ears to.
yeah. So with the retreat, do you think that like allowing a safe space for the women that will be participating will help kind of facilitate more creative endeavors? Is that part of like what you're hoping for?
Yeah, I think by allowing women, especially busy women attorneys, to just remove themselves from the hectic life, go to a relaxing environment where there's no demands on you. You are here. This weekend is about you. It has nothing to do with where you need to be, what you need to write down, and who you need to become. It is, you are here to literally be just a sponge and absorb whatever part of this you need. So I think there's real freedom in just being able to just kind of not check out, but just like kind of clock out of that for a minute and just really attune yourself to that and just have real conversations with someone in a safe space, right? Like, and then you're also, hey, you have a podcast. Oh, well, tell me about that. And so you're literally the people who are there facilitate the magic, if that makes sense, because they're all coming, we're all powerhouses. Every single female attorney is a powerhouse. She either doesn't know it or we need to help her identify her superpower, but they come in there with their superpowers and then they all get together in a room and it's like, holy cow, like I didn't even know that I was capable of that, but if she can do that, I can do that.
One of the things I mentioned last week, Erin, was like in terms of ways to kind of stimulate your creativity is to do things out of the ordinary that you might not normally do. Because a lot of times, like we take the same route every day to work. We go to Starbucks, we get our double, triple mocha latte, and we sit down, we do the exact same routine every single day. And that type of thing doesn't necessarily stimulate creativity, right? But when you do something different, like you take the different route, I say you go to Dunkin' Donuts instead of Starbucks, if that's your thing, right? Or you do a weekend retreat, whether there's work involved or not, right? That kind of thing can really help stimulate your creativity. And just getting kind of that jarring, that jarring kind of like forces you to have a perspective shift on things, or more sensory stimulation, or kind of like what you were saying, like there's more of a cross-pollination of ideas amongst the people there. So I am really excited to see what kind of magic and collaboration comes out of that retreat. So you'll have to keep us posted.
I really kind of equate it to everyone's going to come in there just come out on fire, right? It's like they come in there like a little like smoldering thing, and then they are just like whoosh, that's the creative magic that happens because you are just filled up with like love and everyone's creativity and just all of this, and you just leave like ready to freaking do the dang thing, whatever that means for you. And now you've got the tools and the resources to freaking back you up. So it's going to be awesome. I'm excited. Thank you, Suzi.
Awesome. So Christine, I wanted to kind of go to you on this because you have an interesting background. I think we all do, like we're all lawyers by training, right? So we are analytical, logically inclined, but you took it to another level because you have an engineering background, which is pretty fascinating to me. And then which is like left side of the brain. Like I've worked with engineers. I was a patent lawyer. Like I know how you all are. No shade to my engineers out there. I love you guys. Like you keep our bridges safe, but at the same time, you're very. And then you go to law school, right? And you become a lawyer. And here you are in a career where you are very actively using a very creative part of your brain. Like you're like your right side is on fire all the time, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so I have so much to tell everybody because I love a conversation about creativity. I feel like creativity is sort of the bloodline of my life. I mean, I feel like to be creative is to actually be really living. Um, and even my mug says create. This is the mug that I use every single day, and it says create. And so I have one of my favorite quotes is that creativity is intelligence having fun. And the reason I mentioned that, and that's by Albert Einstein, just to be, give credit. um, but
You should have taken it.
not from Albert, no. But it truly, I feel as though, and Suzi, you might be able to relate to this because we've had these conversations before. The book, The Artist's Way, promotes that everybody, every single human being has a creative streak within them, but not everybody hones it or taps into it. And some people are told from a very young age that they're not creative, or they think that about themselves. And so they never, evolve it or never tap into it. And I feel that everybody has a creative streak in them. And it's just a matter of finding how they are creative. And in fact, I think lawyers are very creative professionals because there's so much that we do in the legal field that is creative. Like, what is the claim, the cause of action we're going to come up with? Sometimes it's a reach, battery can be giving somebody something to drink, right? So that in and of itself is very creative. So I feel like lawyers are very creative, and they do have to be very creative. They have to be creative in the way they interview people, in the depositions that they put, because they have to think about when they ask a certain question, what is it they actually have to reverse engineer questions so that they get to the answers that they want. So that's a method of creativity. So I really feel as though every phase of my life involved some creativity, even though it might be perceived as a very technical background. Of course, the current area that I'm practicing in is the ultimate creative profession, if you will. But I feel like I took the scenic route to get to a very creative industry, but I get to use the skills of being a granular engineer, the skills of being a logical attorney, coupled with the skills of being a stay-home mom for 10 years that I did in between lawyering and my image consulting business, that really gave me the compassion that I think Claire was speaking to, the nurturing that you want to do for clients. And it brought me here today. It was a scenic route, but it was exactly the route I needed to take to tap into my ultimate creativity. I feel as though without creativity, I don't feel alive. And I feel, and it's one of those things that energizes me. And I don't know if that answered a question, but it definitely was stuff I wanted to get out.
Oh, I'm so glad you did.
Okay.
And there's some people that say like, I thrive with creativity. Like I can't survive like without having creativity in my life, like doing something creative. Right. And I love what you said, Christine, also about how we all have creativity within us. Right. We may not understand it, but the possibility is there for everyone. But we don't go out and run a marathon this afternoon. Right. We exercise, or like we train ourselves to get to that point. And I think it's the same thing with creativity. I think that we really have to exercise parts of our brain that maybe we don't exercise as often, that maybe we do tend to be a little more analytical. And Megan, I would love to ask you about this. And it sounds like you work with people who are transitioning into maybe more creative careers. I'd love to know more about that and kind of how you help your clients realize their creative, I guess, I want to say inclinations, but maybe their potential.
Yeah. It's interesting because I don't know. I used to have a story that I didn't have a creative bone in my body. And I have heard a lot of other lawyers say that. And I think it's just because it's not that we don't, it's that we've been just so focused on the left-brained side of things. And that's what's been rewarded for us, that we just sort of, it's like what you were mentioning about not working it out, right? Like we just aren't exercising it. It's not that it doesn't exist. But I find that the people I tend to work with are, they've reached success. They know they, have the job, they're making the money, and they feel like there's still kind of a hole in what they're doing with their lives. And like me, there's this kind of calling to create something. And when I say, and create doesn't have to be like I'm an artist per se, right? It's like they just want to put something into the world. They feel a calling to put something into the world that leverages, and it is my belief, this is why I call it heart-centered business, is, I don't help people go out and like find the hole in the market and like, whatever. I'm like, what does your soul want to bring into this world, really? So it's a lot of some people come in kind of having an inclination. I get a lot of people who come to me sort of maybe with an interest in interior design, just because they know that I have that particular background, but it could be anything. And it's really about mining your own foundations. What are your natural strengths? What are your values? What are your interests? What's sort of your life vision? And from that place, what is the thing that you want to put into the world? What feels purposeful for you? Because it's my belief that doing that, putting that kind of thing into the world is your purpose, right? Like it doesn't have to be saving the world, it's just showing up and creating something from sort of who you really are. And so that's what I help you kind of figure out what that might be. And then importantly, give yourself permission to pursue it. And I love hearing Claire's stories about, for some people, maybe that's not completely leaving the law and doing it, but at least giving yourself permission to make space in your life for it, right? And if it's the right thing for you to make it into a full-time career, then to do that. But to really start thinking more creatively about how you incorporate this into your life. And, I think I could go on a whole tirade about this, but, like we live in a world that's like, this is the path. This is how you make money. This is what you do. And I just think we're at a stage where like, let's think more creatively about what careers look like and what is possible. And so a lot of it is working with people to give themselves permission to think that this is a valuable project to work on.
Yeah, I mean, we don't all have to like create the next like Taylor Swift hit, right? We don't have to all like create some magical, beautiful piece of artwork, but as long as we're creating, and I think it's cool that you're asking your clients, Megan, to kind of think outside the box about what it is they want to do and what like their career could look like, because whether you like it or not, we're really at a stage where careers are going to be evolving very, very drastically.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing this with AI being able to do some pretty impressive outputs. I utilize it, and the nature of work is going to drastically change, and it's going to happen, I'm afraid, pretty quickly. And I'm optimistic. I try to be optimistic about the future and technology. I'm optimistic that it will give us more time to work on our creative pursuits, right? Like rather, maybe Claire can be working on her books. Like maybe she can work on Monday and Tuesday, and Tuesdays are the new Fridays, and she gets to write all the other days of the week, right? And maybe she comes over maybe she uses AI to help her edit stuff, right? But she can still create. So I think they both go hand in hand.
Yeah, I think AI is a very interesting element being thrown in the mix here, because I think, it's no longer going to be, we're not trading in like knowledge, right? Like the knowledge is there, that's out there. So I think this work of figuring out sort of what your unique spark is, what your unique perspective is, what your creative output is, that's going to become sort of the currency, I think, because that's the thing that can't be replicated by technology. And so I think it's hard to get our heads around, because we live in this paradigm where it's like output and, knowledge. And it's just, we're in a shifting world where that's not going to be, it feels so clearly the thing that's valued right now. And I think we're going to see that change. So
it's going to be really interesting to see how AI impacts all industries. But of course, I'm very interested to see how it impacts the legal industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Erin?
Am I up? Do I have a question, or was that like I didn't know?
I was just testing you. I don't even know where my question. I think I was just kind of thinking about AI, because sometimes I do get a little, like, just, I guess, starry-eyed in some way, and like I said, I'm optimistic, and then sometimes I get kind of freaked out. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what does this really mean? Like, are we gonna have what are our jobs going to look like, right? But like I said, I am very optimistic that we will have more time for creative endeavors. And maybe that's like what I want to ask you guys next. Like, maybe that's where we go next, is how do you find time to integrate creative endeavors into your daily life, and what does that look like? So Erin, no pressure.
Yeah, well, I think I will first say, Megan, I love that all of y'all have touched on this on some level, that creativity doesn't have to be like this whole like grand thing, like music or dance or like whatever. It can literally just be exactly what Megan said, like what your heart and your soul likes to do. I mean, maybe that is ballet dancing. Maybe you take up piano at 40. I mean, that's awesome. But like literally just doing something that your heart desires is like creativity at the smallest level. And the more you start to do it, the more your soul starts to crave it. But how do I fit that into my day? I schedule myself into my day. I am a priority. Like, obviously I have lots of other priorities, my children, my family, you know, my job or whatever, but I schedule myself in and I make sure that my cup gets filled, because if I am not full, then I cannot be creative. Or, you know, if I'm tired, or if I'm run down, or I have, you know, not, you know, spent time with my journal that week, or like whatever it is that makes me feel calm and peaceful, is then what is able to then output creativity. If I'm feeling hectic and jumbled inside, I cannot be creative. It just stifles everything. And so when I am peaceful, when I am in alignment, then I can be creative. So, and it doesn't have to be anything big. It just has to be the thing that brings you back to center. That's the thing that brings you back to center. And that's how you can fit creativity into every single day. And if you feel like you're just spinning your wheels, you probably are. So let's get out of your routine. Get up, go to the coffee shop. You don't even have to talk to anybody. That's the brilliant thing. I told a client that yesterday. Go to the coffee shop. You don't have to talk to anybody. You can absorb people's energy. You don't have to talk to these people. Absorb their energy. Go get back in your car and drive home. And I bet you all the money and wherever we are right now, that you will have a creative just, whoop, it'll just like pop out of you. So that's my tip for today.
I love that. Yeah, I love to go.
Or Dunkin' Donuts if you always go to Starbucks.
Do something different, right? But
I incorporate daydreaming, because when you're daydreaming, you're actually working creatively and you're thinking. And also I have a morning routine that is fixed, but also varied. So for instance, like I have things that I do that are very technical. Like I check my bank accounts every single day. Every single day, I check my bank accounts, and I start with that. And then I delve into The Artist's Way. Now, The Artist's Way is that book I was mentioning that is about finding your creative genius, or exploring it, or honing whatever that might be. And I love that. And I read it and I reread it. And it's kind of been a journey of journaling, but learning and really tapping into the creativity. I love the way the author writes that book. So, and if any of you don't know the book, check it out. And then I do other technical things. Like I actually connect on social media in the morning, on Facebook and on Instagram, because that is sort of my connection with people and like my sphere of influence. And I try to make it creative, but it's also kind of a routine. So, back to what you were saying, Suzi, about doing something different. This is sort of my routine, but the routine itself encapsulates different things. I also do, I work out in the morning, And so I have like a routine. Every time the nuggets of the routine, the buckets kind of shift within themselves. Does that make sense? I don't know if it does.
Share your screen right now with the world. I'm kidding. No, but I have seen her calendar, her morning calendar, and it's awesome. Like, because you do journal, you do. I think you read the Bible, and I think you write. Also, like you have you been rewriting?
I'm creating a handwritten copy of the Holy Bible. Yes. Yeah. So that is sort of my time spiritually with, in my faith journey. But that in of itself I feel is creative because so everything I really do, I try and give it a creative twist. Because again, for me, being creative is sort of like breathing. I have to, do that. And maybe it's because I have always seen myself as a creative. I went to engineering school and law school by default. I know that's going to sound strange, but because
you wouldn't believe how many of us are up there by default, sis. Girlfriend, you got like half 3/4 call, girl. I'm telling you.
I had a family that if I wasn't a doctor, a lawyer, or engineer, I was not going to be successful. So that's sort of it was my default. And then it just became a challenge. Like I was like in engineering school. I'm like, you don't think I can do that? Of course I'm going to do that. Anyway, and get through it. So I went to those schools by default, but I was able to find the creative part of it and kind of focus on that. And it really contributed to my ability to do what I do today and be a mom. I mean, when you educate a woman, and this might sound cliche or maybe too much stereotypical, but when you educate a woman, you educate an entire family, as opposed to educating a man, he goes out, he works, whatever. But for women, we touch so much. We touch so many people, whether it's our families, our direct families, or other people outside, with our creative ability, with our education. So that whole journey of, I'm sorry, I think I lost track of what I was going to say. But in other words, I went to law school and engineering school by default, but I feel like I cannot live without being creative in every area of life. And I was always a natural born creative. Like from being a young child, I knew that one day I was going to do something creative for work. So.
Yeah. And you honestly have like one of the most creative Instagrams and I'm not even like an Instagram person, this, I'm just not really on there very much, but I get on there sometimes to see your stuff. Like I gotta stop Christine. But I mean, like in terms of creativity, I saw like your holiday setting for, I guess it was for Christmas, like just your table, like you put creativity into everything, like setting the table, right? And getting the food prepared. And so I think that that's a really cool thing to think about too, is like, creativity doesn't have to be sitting down and painting or embroidering or whatever, like you can think about how you can integrate creativity in many aspects of your life. And it doesn't have to look good. Like it's okay if it's messy. This is mine and Erin's conversation, right? Like put it into the world. Like even if it's like a messy, like part of the journey is what is important. It's not the end product, right? It doesn't matter if the table looks perfect when you set it. It doesn't matter if the retreat that you have doesn't flow perfectly, right? The beauty is in the process of creating something and not necessarily the end result.
Yeah.
I think you can say that
allowing yourself that too, like allowing yourself that permission to freaking go for it. I mean, that just fuels creativity right there. Yeah. Sorry, Megan, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no. I was just saying, I see that a lot of people who I end up working with, and I think because this is my story, is I'm like, I was a lawyer. I worked in higher ed. I did interior design. Now I'm a coach. And it's like, ooh, am I a total flake? Like, what's wrong with me, right? Or am I just following the creative flow of my career and that's okay, right? So it's like creativity comes in these kind of macro ways too. And the other thing I was going to say is I think like when Erin was talking, well, both Erin and Christine, about sort of being quiet and centering yourself and having these practices, I think that's so important because I think intuition is very tied to your access to your creativity. And so giving yourself time and space to whether it's, you know, a formal meditation practice, or like you were saying, Susie, like going for a walk, or, you know, when you have these like breakthroughs in the shower, it's just like, whatever this is, like find the quiet time. And that's where you get sort of these intuitive downloads. And I think that often takes you in the direction of your creativity, rather than I'm going to write out a 10-step plan and execute it exactly, and it's going to make sense. It's like giving your brain time to just like listen to those little, you know, whispers.
Yeah. And don't underestimate the importance of the whispers.
Yeah, exactly. I've had a couple people I talked to this week that I'm like, you know, sometimes the universe whispers, and then it whispers, and then it punches you in the face.
And then it just starts yelling, and then you're like, you're down. You're like, wait a second. I'm like, that's the universe on your face now.
Yeah.
Like, it's right there. It's on you. Yeah.
I love what Erin called it also. Like you're finding kind of your way to center yourself every day, right? It's not like having to sit down and work on a thing, right? It's just finding whatever it is, however you want to define it, that kind of helps center your day.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be complicated. I think we like to overcomplicate these things, and it doesn't have to be like, if you, like me, I'm trying to get kids out of the house in the morning. I can't do a morning routine right now. And I was trying to like literally fit this square peg in a round hole for like months. And I'm sitting there meditating, I'm like, but I mean, what am I doing? So like, I got to fit it in right now. Like, that is the opposite of helpful, just for everyone listening. But you know what I mean? The sooner I just accepted that was the season that I'm in, and that I'm going to be able, like, now what do I need in this season, and what can I give myself, considering what my values, priorities, and time frame is in this season? Like, what can I give myself? That is like the essence of self-care, right? Like, it doesn't have to be complicated. If it's walking outside, just, you know, whatever it is. Driving is my meditation these days, because I'm traversing East Texas as an Uber driver, in case anyone needs a ride.
And I think you're absolutely right, Erin, because, you know, even like driving, sometimes when my kids were little, I used to not want the radio on when I was alone in the car, because I couldn't take any more stimulation. And the other thing that you said that is really, really critical, I think, is appreciating the season you're in. Because when I started my business, my youngest was 2, and I was always torn, because I was just kind of letting it organically grow, but I had so many ideas that I wanted to execute. But then I had this 2-year-old that I didn't want to miss out on, because that was sort of my first job, my priority. But I took this attitude that I need to appreciate the season I'm in. I am the mother of a 2-year-old who's letting her business grow organically without executing every single idea at the moment, not yet. So that is really, really important for us women to really know in general.
Yeah, and don't fight your season of life. Like, just embrace it and appreciate it, right? Like, you're in a season of life right now, Erin, where you have 2 young girls, and one of these days, and it'll happen so fast, they won't be so young anymore. And, you know, you're going to be like, I wish they would call me more and ask me for help, right? And then, you know, that's a different season of life. So, you know, just embrace it where you are, and, you know, work on the creativity where it works for you. Guys, okay, I want to do one final thing before we wrap up today. I would love each of you to just give one like little nugget of creativity advice and let people know where they can find you. So I'll go in reverse order. So we will start with Erin.
Okay, awesome. This is my tip to everyone. Find your walk song, your pump up song, whatever it is. Blast that thing in the car, blast it in your office, dance while no one's watching. I don't care if you feel like an idiot. It will be the best, most fun release ever, and you will feel so creative and on fire to go do something. Like, mine is unstoppable. And I mean, if anyone rolled up on me in the car singing that, they would think that I'd lost my mind. But that is my one tip. And turn off the radio while you're driving. Just turn it off. If you've got 15 or more minutes to drive, turn off, or even, I don't care. Just turn off the radio and sit in silence and just become aware and listen to your thoughts and see what comes up. Don't judge them. You know, just see what comes up. It's all information. But you can find me on Instagram at Erin Gerner, GERNER. Same thing on LinkedIn, eringerner.com. You can find me. But yeah, and if you need information for the retreat, you can find it on there too. So yeah, we've got a couple spots left, and we'd love to have you.
Erin, thank you so much. Of course, I was going to ask you what your song was. Is that the Sia song? Is it the one by Sia? Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your creativity and your brilliance. I'm so happy that you hung out with us today.
Thank you for having me.
So let's go with Claire.
Yeah, I think in terms of creativity, everything, I think my habits in life that are the most important to me, I think all started super small. I started meditating at 1 minute a day because that's all I could do. When I started getting back into working out, I started doing walks around my block and slow flow yoga because that's all I could handle. And I started writing. I did a blog program a while ago where I wrote one blog post a month, and I remember worrying that I could do that. And it just grows over time. So in terms of your question about how do you make time for it, I think the first thing is to start real small with it and see where it takes you. But you'll never go anywhere if you don't even start small. And along with that, I would say, like, as much as you can, show your work and get it out there. I think one of the best things that I had going for me from a creativity standpoint is that I'm a huge overthinker, and I had to publish stuff where I couldn't let it go in my mind. And so it was this great blessing because it got my name out there. People started to recognize it. I became connected to all these other creative people that inspired me to keep going. So it's just huge. Do not hide your stuff. I mean, do it as long as you need, but then get it out there and show some people because it'll make a huge difference. But in terms of finding me, you can find me on LinkedIn at Claire E. Parsons. And also Brilliant Legal Mind is on WordPress, as well as LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Claire. Put your stuff out there. And the more you practice your creativity, the more I feel like the more you do creative things, the more creative you can become. It's not like you have a finite well of creative ideas. So
yeah, and you'll get faster and more efficient too. You'll learn how to do it better.
Yeah. That's cool, right? That you can actually get better at being creative.
Yeah.
Okay, Megan.
I think my advice would be sort of what you alluded to is just do it messy. Like, just follow your curiosity and throw some spaghetti at the wall. Like, when I started sort of in this part, I took a voiceover class. I took a graphic design class. I took a photography class. I started a travel blog. I started a podcast. You don't necessarily know like where your creative energy wants to go unless you sort of give it some try. So don't overthink it or have to have such a plan. Just do it messy and try things and like give yourself the space to play, because I think that's where your natural inclinations are really gonna come out. And to find me, you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn. It's Megan Smiley ESQ. Website is megansmiley.com. And if you want to check out my podcast, it's The Lawyer's Escape Pod.
Escape Pod. I love that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you make some really important points here. Like, attorneys, like, we want to plan everything, right? Like, I need to plan my creative time. Like, right. What am I gonna make? Like, what am I gonna do? Right? But like,
I'm gonna plan to be spontaneous.
I'm gonna plan to be spontaneous. Like, this is my spontaneous time between 3 and 5 o'clock every Friday afternoon.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's how we are. I mean, it's a big generalization, but yeah. So Christine, we'll wrap it up with you.
Okay. So I would say don't underestimate the power of daydreaming when you're being creative. You know, I think sometimes we just need sort of that pause, the quiet, just sitting outside in a great place just to daydream, which is that quiet time that many do through meditation or through just taking a walk or a hike or whatnot, however it is that you do and you do it and how you daydream. I think that also, I want to add that creativity to me isn't only intelligence, having fun, but it's also, and maybe I've read this somewhere and it's stuck with me, is that it's the ability to take the things that are seemingly unrelatable and connect them. And I feel as though that is the ultimate creativity, right? Somebody who is really has honed their creative ability can do that. And I would say that if for the audio, if anybody's listening to this out there, and whoever, and maybe the ladies on the panel, The Artist's Way, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but if you aren't, pick up the book. It is sort of like a study guide, a journey through really tapping into your creativity, recommending it for people at a retreat or using it at a retreat is just, it can be very, very powerful. And finally, the way you can find me is I am on Instagram at the Jade House. It's jade.houseofstyle. My website is jadehouseofstyle.com. I also have a podcast that I started during the pandemic because people weren't dressing head to toe, but rather head to waist, called Waist Up Wardrobe. And it's everything about how to show up professionally on camera, including not only how you dress, but your attitude, your mindset, everything about entrepreneurship. And I'm recording episode 132 tomorrow live. It's live every Thursday at 11:30 on Facebook. So I hope to connect with you ladies on Instagram and other platforms as well. Thank you, Suzi, for having me.
Thank you for being here. Christine helped me with my background, and it, like, you should see the before picture and after picture. She uses, it was so bad before, she uses me as a before picture. So that's when
you're on my website.
That's when you know you're winning, right? When you're being used as the before picture for someone's before and after. But Christine, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. All of you all, Claire, Megan, Erin. I've loved getting to speak with you, brilliant brains about creativity. This is such a fun, I think that this is such a fun topic. And I think that we sort of overlook the importance of allowing creativity in our lives. So thank you all so much for being here. And if you enjoyed this show and you would like to stay updated on future Legally Blissed content, including where we go live right here in the conference room, make sure you hit the subscribe button and that little bell so you don't miss any content around how to become a more fierce and fabulous self-advocate, and how you can become a fierce and fabulous advocate for other women lawyers. So also feel free to share this episode if you think someone would find it of value. And again, I'd like to thank each of you for your unique brilliance. And thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Bye. Hey guys, just before you all bounce, this is the after party and it's actually still on YouTube. So no cursing, no yeah, we can break it down. Oh, Erin's gone. I thought Erin was going to break out her scene.
No.
I thought that was a great piece of advice though, actually. Just, pick your music and just dance to it if you need to.
Yeah, I love that. It's a real mood shifter too, right? Like if you're just kind of like,
music has a huge impact on me. Like if I'm going for a run and I don't listen to music, or I listen to a podcast or something, like I feel much draggier. But then if I listen to something fun and happier, I run faster. Yeah. So, guys, thank you all so much for being here. Do you all have any questions or concerns or? Sorry for my little question pause. I think I kind of spaced out. I started daydreaming, Christine.
I know. I was going to jump in, but then I was like,
I know, I was too. I was like, I'm going into podcast host mode. Should I whenever I'm on the guest side, I'm like, be quiet, Megan. Be quiet, Megan.
It can be really hard too, if you are a guest, right? But you're used to podcasting as well. Whenever you're like, should I jump in or just pause? Yeah. But I think I was having just an element of just impromptu daydreaming. So
love it. I love it. But I would love to connect with everybody on Instagram if if you guys are all on there. I know that everybody mentioned their handles, so I'll check everybody out and hopefully get to connect. And is everybody here in your circle? Okay, so yes. I need to get more active in Circle.
Yeah, it's been an interesting kind of journey with Circle because everyone seems so used to kind of utilizing the already ingrained social platforms. Yeah. And Circle is a different thing, right? And so it's you have to think about going and visiting it, right? So I'm gonna have you add that to your things to do in the morning after you check your bank account, to go before you get on Facebook, before you go and get on Instagram. You have to come over to Legally Blissed, and no, you don't have to, but you know, I would love to have you just come in and say hi. And there is some content, y'all, from Christine when she talked about what is style, or did you talk about branding?
I talk about branding, but I define
Branding,
branding as style, and that's probably why you're thinking
branding as style. Yeah. So that content's in there. It's really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. So, guys, I'm gonna let y'all go.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Have a good day.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Have a beautiful day. Bye, friends.